Hey guys, BionicleSaurus here, how you all doing? And in this video, we are going to be taking a look at the CollectA Triceratops corpse. This is an interesting figure for sure, so let's get into it. Starting with the overall look, this figure, I mean, I don't know. What are we even going to compare it to, really? I mean, there's no point of reference for this. I mean, the CollectA does also have a dead Stegosaurus as well, but besides that, those are basically the only two figures in existence to do this sort of thing. Oh, they do have a new dead T-Rex coming out for 2016, actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, so yeah, I don't really know where to start or what to talk about, because this is kind of an unconventional figure, but let's just talk about the coloration. They've given them eye spots on the frill, which is a little bit stereotypic, but they've done enough with all this kind of dark gray and white. I think it looks pretty cool. All the wounds look really good. Like, they've applied this glossy finish over the red paint, and it really does look like fresh blood or something, or you know, wet, fresh muscle inside of the carcass, which is pretty cool. I think they've really done the effect quite well. The figure, for the most part, is just kind of brown everywhere else besides the head, although we can see that it's supposed to be kind of this lighter cream color on the underside, although you can't really see it on the torso because there's too much blood and guts. But yeah, I love the little tongue coming out. That's pretty funny. Overall, you know, this figure, I mean, at first, you're just purely struck by the novelty of it. It's hard to even critique the way it overall looks because it's just so, you know, it's just so different and unique from pretty much anything we've gotten before. So, for overall appearance, I'm going to give this figure an A-. I just don't know. I mean, it's so different. How are you supposed to critique this sort of thing? I mean, I don't know. I guess the colors are interesting. Well, interesting enough, at least on the head. Like I said, everywhere else they're a little bit more dull and basic. But, like, all the wounds look realistic and good. I mean, this figure, once you kind of get over the novelty of it, like I said, you start to realize it is really, really well done. So, let's talk a little bit about this figure's detail. Now, let me say, this huge wound right in the center of the torso, I mean, it is clearly, excuse me, it's the eye catcher, it's the showstopper, it's the thing that you first look at when you're like, oh, that Triceratops is dead. Like, this huge wound here, there's exposed ribs up at the top, there's all these entrails and organs and flesh and blood, and holy wow, they have detailed it really, really well. I mean, everything I just mentioned is like perfectly individually sculpted in there and really well painted to boot. So, I mean, goodness, they've really done a good job of it. Another good point of detail is the head. As you can see, one of the interesting wounds on this figure, one of the more interesting wounds, is the one on the face, where you can actually see teeth of all things exposed from the inside of the mouth. The teeth are actually, despite how freaking tiny they are, individually sculpted, which is really awesome. The eyes are closed, as you can see. We can just kind of see this little half-moon shaped slit. All the horns are really well done. The whole thing is covered in individually sculpted scales. Even the other side of the figure is, which is nice. They didn't neglect this at all. But once again, I mean, they've just done a really good job. This thing must have really taken some time and some research to fully sculpt and detail. I mean, look at these wounds. They're just, oh my gosh, they're really quite impressive. So, for detail, I give this figure an A. I mean, sure, if it didn't have its wounds, it might not be as impressive, but it does have individually sculpted scales, a very well-executed paint job, and beyond that, all these wounds and bites and claw marks in it are just so well done. I mean, look at that. That is a impressive amount of detail once you get over the fact that it's so gory. I mean, it's pretty easy to appreciate that, and so, I mean, this figure, I'm just... Like I said, at first you're so caught by the novelty, like, huh, it's a carcass, but then when you really start looking at it, it's like, wow, they did a really good job making this carcass. Now let's talk a little bit about paleontological accuracy. So, oh goodness, I don't know what to really say about, like, the innards and the insides of this thing. I mean, all the organs. The ribs, I do notice, look a little small, but I don't really know. The angle might be weird, but I don't think so. I mean, I don't know much about, you know, dinosaur anatomy, or even all that much about skeletal anatomy, at least not with ceratopsids. I could probably have a little bit more of an intelligent opinion about this if this was a theropod. But, so, yeah, I'm not really going to comment on that. I'm just going to comment on what I would, you know, comment on if this wasn't a dead Triceratops. The skin texturing is perfectly fine. We do have some skin impressions from ceratopsians, and they show fairly large, reptilian-looking scales. The teeth are small and peg-like, almost square, perfect for slicing up leaves. The head, you know, that's a part that's pretty easy to mess up despite how iconic it is, but they've done a pretty good job. I think maybe the horn angle, like the angle of these brow horns might be a little bit weird, but I don't really think it's that off. I mean, they've done a really good job. If anything, the frill seems maybe a tad wide or something. It is very, very large. The snout is fairly long and slender, which I believe that would suggest T. horridus, and yet the nose horn is very long, which would more suggest T. parsis, so I'm not sure what species they're trying to go for. All the feet have the correct concave backs to them, and the right number of toes and right number of hooves on those toes. They even included some quills coming up off of the tail, or right above the hips, so overall, I must say, they really didn't get much wrong, that's for sure. So, for accuracy, I give this figure an A+. I mean, I know it sounds like such a huge rating to give, but when you really look at it, there's no, like, real discernible flaws. There's maybe some minor nitpicks you could come up with, but overall, they've done just a great job. So, my overall rating for this figure is an A+. Now, obviously, when you first look at it, you're so just distracted almost by how unique it is. I mean, you've probably never seen a dinosaur figure quite like this before, but when you really start examining it, it still holds up. I'd say CollectA knocked this one out of the park. Thanks for watching, and BionicleSaurus signing out.